something that the geneticist actually said to us when she gave us the diagnosis was, this doesn't define him. He can be whoever he wants to be. And that has stuck with me.
Yeah. And that's so great to hear coming from that kind of diagnosis day and that process, because for a lot of families, they don't get that. Like it can be, and I don't mean that as negative towards anyone in the medical field, but a lot of our families talk about how that's a negative experience, or how they walk away only hearing what their child has been robbed of or won't be able to do, and not reinforcing all the beauty and all the joy and all the good things that are right there in front of them.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what you guys are doing. You know, you guys are really reinforcing the beauty and showing the beauty of all these different families and everything. And it's amazing.
We didn't put this quote here to, toot our own horn, but more so to reinforce those people that just seem to get it. Like that geneticist. Avery is not his diagnosis. I'm Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Welcome back. This is part 2 of the conversation with Kelly, who is the mother to Avery. Avery is our feature kiddo for the month of May 2021. I would recommend listening to part 1 if you haven't done that yet. That episode gives a lot of context for Avery's medical journey and the background for Kelly and her husband, Mark. We ended the last episode talking about conversations, interactions, and phrases that cause some separation between families with kids on rare medical journeys and people who haven't walked that path. Now, to be clear, this is not a place of judgment on people who make comments or say things that are hard to take in for these families. Kelly affirms that in this episode, but this is one major reason we have these conversations, so that we can all learn how to bridge that gap, be more inclusive, and together rather than separate. It's not easy. I've been with Go Shout Love for a few years now, and it is still a learning process for me with every conversation we have. We also, in this episode, get valuable insight about how to approach the future with so many unknowns when it comes to a diagnosis. Not only that, but you get to hear about how a couple can grow together when they walk this journey together. Leading this conversation is Josh Veach, one of our co-directors of Go Shout Love. Please, if you have a second, rate and review, and then share this podcast, especially if you are enjoying it and getting some growth from it. Let's share that. Let's shout it, so to speak.
How have you found support in that journey, especially in light of conversations that are prompting those sort of things that maybe create a little bit more separation than like bringing people together?
Honestly, I think my husband and I have gotten closer than ever before because of this, because we're going through it together, and we have a great communication, so we can talk about everything with each other, and we just help each other through these situations and how we can, work on ourselves and our reactions for the better. And our family and friends, they're all amazing, and they're a great support system, and they love Avery. So that's all we ask for. Yeah.
So the short-sighted comments about being lucky that you only have one running around, that's not coming from the close family or friends. That's kind of more the fringe.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so it sometimes does happen quite often.
Yeah. One of the things that we hear a lot from families is that as they go through seasons and kind of navigate these rare medical journeys, that it kind of draws the line in the sand for some relationships. There are certain people that get it and are kind of, you can tell they're going to be along for the ride, and they're going to show up when needed, oftentimes show up when they're not even asked. They just know how to serve, and they step in. And then there's people that fall on the other side of that line that just, they never get it and they never understand, and naturally kind of that relationship distance, and that's okay. That's how it works. But you mentioned earlier that along with kind of the diagnosis, there's certain parameters that are encouraging and kind of give you some things of what to expect and kind of where to go, but there's a lot of unknowns you referenced in the future. In light of the unknowns, how do you stay focused on today and not get caught worrying or dreaming or thinking about consumed by what may or may not be in the future?
Right. We're definitely not perfect, and we definitely do get consumed sometimes in the future. And, we start to have those anxieties about it, but we really try to focus on, just like you said, taking it day by day. We plan for the day. We see how we can help Avery for that day, what we can do for that day to help him, help Emma too. And then we just take it from there. The autism diagnosis we were not expecting so early. He got diagnosed, I think he was like 15 months old. We were not expecting that so early. So I think that kind of hit us like a ton of bricks, but we're like, well, we can help him today. We can help him do this today. We're not going to worry about next year, what level he may be at, or like how difficult things may be for him. So we just take it day by day.
Yeah. And how you mentioned that you and Mark have grown a lot. You've grown together through this journey. How are you able to find space together in the midst of this? I know for a lot of folks, especially in the military, that sometimes they're not near family. It just kind of depends on their situation. And so that can be a little bit more difficult.
Right. I guess we don't really, I don't know how to put this. We don't really set aside time to like find space from it. We getting outside and hiking and like doing things as a family, I think that's really what has kept us so strong. We just love being together. So, and being with the kids and being with the dogs. And I think that's helped us a lot, just being together.
Yeah. When if you could go back to when Avery was a couple months old and maybe the whole season of, something's wrong and you're asking and you're not really getting what you need from the doctors, from that season, even to getting a diagnosis, if you could go back and tell yourself anything and give a piece of advice to someone who's in those shoes right now, what would you say to them?
I think I would say that everything is going to be totally fine and everything may not get figured out, but it's going to be okay. And you don't need to be so stressed out. Like faith has a way of working, fate has a way of working, and everything's going to work out the way it should.
Yeah. It's like, okay is not the same as fixed, and that's okay.
Right. Exactly. Like we did get an answer to why Avery is the way he is, but that doesn't mean his problems are going to be fixed, So, but now that we have an answer, we have a guide.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's really cool about that too is that I think that perspective brings, not only is it okay, but this doesn't rob Avery of being Avery. Like all the things that you mentioned in the very beginning, all the things that, make him who he is, his personality and the adventurous type and the happiness, like all those things are still there. Right. Like he still gets to be all those things and bring all that joy to your family. No, go ahead, please.
Something that the geneticist actually said to us when she gave us the diagnosis was, this doesn't define him. He can be whoever he wants to be. And that has stuck with me.
Yeah. And that's so great to hear coming from that kind of diagnosis day and that process, because for a lot of families, they don't get that. Like it can be, and I don't mean that as negative towards anyone in the medical field, but a lot of our families talk about how that's a negative experience, or how they walk away only hearing what their child has been robbed of or won't be able to do, and not reinforcing all the beauty and all the joy and all the good things that are right there in front of them.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what you guys are doing. You know, you guys are really reinforcing the beauty and showing the beauty of all these different families and everything. And it's amazing.
Well, thank you. That's what we hope to do. And I can say that this whole journey, I get to talk to a lot of families, and it's changed me a ton. It's changed my perspective. It helps me look, it's completely shifted my lens of the world. And I'm curious how, for you going into motherhood and walking this journey alongside of Avery, alongside of Emma and your husband, how are you different than you were 2 years ago?
Oh, I'm completely different. I think I have a lot more compassion and a lot more patience and I choose like grace over grudge a lot more than I probably used to. Because, you know, like we talked about earlier, there's no face to a disability. So you never really know what anyone is going through. So I just try to give the benefit of the doubt in any situation and give myself the benefit of the doubt in situations. And I think I'm just a lot more patient and a lot more kind. Yeah.
Grace over grudge, man. That's powerful. I haven't heard it put that way before, but that will stick. If anyone's at a place where they've been struggling with that, because really you're forced to deal with like your selfishness in that. And like when you've been through a season where you just want somebody to extend a little grace, then it makes you a little bit more likely to extend that to someone else if you've taken a minute to put yourself in their shoes.
Definitely. And I cannot claim grace over grudge. It's something I heard actually from our pastor at our last church sermon.
Yeah.
It's something that'll stick with me probably for the rest of my life.
Yeah. In the church world, they'll say that'll preach. And so, yes, that if anyone's listening, that's going to stick for sure. As you look back, and you've referenced your faith, as you look back in different seasons or different parts of this journey, can you look back and see certain things that positives came out of the situation when it seemed really bleak or really frustrating or really negative?
Probably, the transition from me getting out of the Navy and moving to South Carolina, it seemed like a whole fiasco, really. But once everything slowed down, we got to look back and we got to see that everything worked out just the way it should. And we're so happy with where we're at the moment. We have great neighbors, great friends. But at the time it was like, why is all this happening?
Yeah. Well, and I would assume there's a certain level of even mourning in that process of
definitely.
You're not only mourning a kind of a transition that you weren't expecting or wanting to make. And then you're leaving Hawaii for South Carolina, which nothing against South Carolina, or maybe that was a good move. Was that a good?
It was good. Hawaii was very crowded.
Okay.
It was good. And the healthcare wasn't so great. So
fair enough.
We're very happy with where we are. But at the time, we were just so stressed out. But we found great therapists here and everything falls into place.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about kind of where Avery is now in like what he's going through from a medical standpoint, what's next for him, kind of what's around the corner.
Well, everything comes in waves, and it seems like the beginning of this year is another wave with the, new diagnosis. He started daycare because I've started back at school. And we actually had to make the decision last night that we think we're going to take him back out of daycare. Because it's just too much for him. It's too much sensory overload. He doesn't take naps there. So he's just constantly exhausted. So we had to make that tough call, but I think it'll be good. But like he just started clapping recently and banging toys. And that was just so exciting to see. Yeah, that was really cool. He sits on his own, but he doesn't know how to catch himself. So, you got to be ready to catch him if he starts falling. But he's really started to observe the world. He's a people watcher. So he's very curious, but it's really fun to see.
Awesome. And he's making that sensory element of making his own noise. That's huge. That's a big deal.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think he kind of surprises himself sometimes. Banging objects. He's like, oh,
that's loud. Yeah. That's awesome. And is he, he's had some surgeries, right? As part of this process. Tell us a little bit about those.
He had to get his tear ducts unblocked, because when you have blocked tear ducts, you basically wake up with, crusted shut eyes. So he had to get those unblocked. And then another surgery, they were going to remove his adenoids and tonsils because he has severe sleep apnea, but they decided not to last minute in the surgery. But they did just put tubes in his ears because he had really bad hearing from fluid. And now he has great hearing thanks to the tubes.
Yep.
So just a few surgeries like that. They are talking about getting a G tube for him because feeding has become difficult.
Yeah.
And it's just not a fun time for him.
Yep.
So we actually meet with the GI team at the end of this month at the end of April to see, what the next step is. But I think he's going to end up getting a G tube, which may be a blessing in disguise.
Yep. How, so when he was in the surgery and they made the decision, kind of that last minute decision, what was the driver behind aborting that decision to have the tonsils and adenoids taken out?
They said that they did a sleep study while he was under anesthesia. And they said that the tonsils and adenoids were not affecting the obstructive sleep apnea. So they were like, we're not going to put, a 15-month-old through this. So they decided.
So it was a stress they didn't think he needed.
Right. Which thank God, because if he doesn't need it, let's not do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. And then I think I read something about potentially concerns about his heart. Is there issues to watch there?
Yeah, he has a hole in his heart, which is pretty significant. And then it's causing an enlargement as well. So they usually wait until about 2 or 3 to really decide if they want to do a surgery to close the hole, because sometimes they can close on his own. So we're just taking that, every 6 months we get an update after an echocardiogram to see if it's closed at all. And so far, not much has happened, but we're still hoping.
Yeah, that's scary. I mean, anything related to the heart is not something, you got enough worries. You don't really specifically want to be worrying about his heart too.
Right. Definitely. I'm almost, at the point where I wish they would just close it so we didn't have to keep, wondering about it, but doctor knows best. Yeah.
Well, it's evident that you have navigated a lot as a mom in 18 months, because when you say he has a hole in his heart, for most of us, that's like, oh, that's significant. And you're just like, yeah, he's got this hole, and it's just one more thing that we're watching, right, and we're managing. And I'm sure that not every day is so well navigated, and I'm sure there are days that it's tough, but you, and I'm sure your husband as well, seem to be just rocking it as mom and dad. So good for you guys.
Thank you. We're doing our best, Yeah. That's all we can do.
Yeah. I'm really bummed that Mark has to work today, and we weren't able to, he wasn't able to be part of our conversation today, but tell us a little bit about him and his relationship with the kiddos.
Oh my gosh. He is an amazing dad. He's so involved, and I feel like he's almost as involved. He's as involved as I am, which is, tough to say for a full-time working dad. He does his best to go to all appointments. He's always asking about therapies, and he just loves them so much. He's always trying to take Avery out of his bed to cuddle him. He's so loving, and he loves them. And I think that they've really made a really good impact on him as well. Mm-hmm. We both have made like 180s ever since having them. Not saying we were bad people before, but, we've just grown and we've become better people, and it's been great.
Yeah. How have you seen him? How is Mark as a dad different than the Mark you met and dated and married?
He's still kind of a kid at heart, which is amazing because I'm like the straight and narrow. Um, but I've seen him, evolve into just an amazing dad and an amazing partner, and I could not ask for more, really.
What would you say to couples going through seasons or journeys like yours to say? Because, it's an unfortunate reality that there are the stress that comes with navigating journeys like what you guys are on and other families that we've talked to. It's difficult and it puts extra strain. And some make it and some don't. And that's a really hard thing to process.
Really?
But what would you say to families and to couples that are navigating that as an encouragement and advice, anything that you've learned so far along the way?
I think that what we've done and what I would, advise other people to do is just lean on each other and focus on the problem at hand. Don't focus on I don't know how to put this. Like there's a problem and you two can tackle it together. Be a team and just communicate. Like if you're having a bad day, talk to your partner because they know you truly the best and they can help you get through anything, and they're your rock and you're their rock. Yeah.
Well, and that's good advice for every couple, regardless of whether or not they're, facing a tough situation with a medical journey. But you're absolutely right. It can be tempting to put the problem on your spouse, on your partner, right, and they end up wearing the problem and you think the problem's them. And right, instead of keeping it focused on, no, we're in this together and we're trying to come up with a solution together for this challenge.
Right.
That's really good.
And that's what's really helped us. Definitely.
That's great.
Thanks for listening. If you are new to Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Adventure Awaits design is inspired by Avery, a happy, resilient, and adaptable 1-year-old from Charleston, South Carolina. He lives each day with a smile and encourages us to embrace the adventure that awaits, no matter how tall the mountains may seem. Every purchase in May will help cover the expenses of a CPAP machine to help Avery have a safe and restful sleep each night. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Avery through the purchase of a t-shirt, tank top, sweater, hoodie, tumbler, or other items. And you can also subscribe and shout love every month and make an impact every month. Please stay tuned as we have another incredible family lined up for June with some more conversations that we can't wait to share with you, and then turn around and for them, go shout love.